Hello, Night Nation. Trace Trolko here. Welcome to the Sons of UCF Live. It is the end of the road for men's soccer. We have some reaction. Which Knights might get selected in next year's NFL draft? We speculate. And men's and women's tennis rack up the awards. Let us welcome in the Sons of UCF, Adam and Mike. Gentlemen, how are we this evening?
I'm good, Trace. I felt underdressed recently, so I broke out the tie for the show tonight. I feel like a banker in this.
Trace and I, we got the same shirt on. That never happens.
I got the memo.
Yeah. Adam, what's going on here?
Did I not get the memo, or what happened there? I got the tie, though. I mean, I can't keep up with you guys in your fashion. I mean, Mike last week broke out, a fantastic draft suit. Trace may or may not have been selling vacuums. We're not. It's unclear at this point. So I figured the tie was necessary. I got to keep up with the HR guidelines around the show these days.
It feels a little weird doing the show without the sunglasses.
Is that a t-shirt, though? Are you wearing the tie with a t-shirt, though?
I know. I feel like a banker in this, don't I? I know. But, I didn't want to get too I wasn't sure the vibe tonight. I didn't know white shirts were the thing. I mean, I apologize.
You're supposed to be the captain of this ship, man. So let's straighten it up here.
Well, gentlemen, let us lead with men's soccer. If you missed, say, the first 30 seconds, it was all that it needed to watch there. UCF turned it over early and often, giving up a couple of goals in the first half, losing to the second seed Pittsburgh Panthers 4-0. UCF back-to-back Sweet 16s. They are out, shut out 4-0 today, and that was a tough one. 23 seconds for the first goal. That is a rough way to start.
It's so tough, Trace, because, I mean, we're going to hear it later on when we hear from Coach Calabrese, but you look at the score line, you look at 4-0, and you say to yourself, oh, my goodness, what a disappointment. But it doesn't do justice for the season these guys had. It's a tough result when you lose a game like this. The reality was UCF wasn't really in it from 23 seconds throughout the other 89 minutes and whatever the difference on that would be. And that's unfortunate because it doesn't underscore the season they had. But Pitt's a fantastic program. It's a great team. We ran into a buzzsaw today, and it happens from time to time. Disappointing for the guys, but overall, from where they were at 1-3 to where they ended up, I still think it's a favorable season. Although today probably feels a little bit like a sour taste.
4-0 in soccer. That's the equivalent to what, like 72-0 in football? That's a blowout. I always joke around that 1-0 is a blowout, insurmountable lead. This game was over within the first minute. Is that what you're telling me? Disappointing ending to a pretty good season. The guys had played well. Another conference championship. Thrilling games there in the tournament at the end. We win a first-round matchup. Can't get past Pitt. Hopefully, maybe Pitt goes on and Pitt wins the whole thing. That make you feel a little bit better about it. If Pitt goes out and gets blown out in their next game, then how good were we?
Well, Pittsburgh's one of the top scoring teams in the country. In their first match, they won 6-1. So in two matches, 180 minutes of soccer, they have scored 10 goals. I don't know whether that's the equivalent of, 4 goals is 72 points, but you get the idea. They're high scoring. No disrespect. That's a quality team in Pittsburgh. I asked Coach Calabrese just a short time ago. The match ended about 5. We didn't get to talk to Coach Calabrese for more than an hour after the game. If there were some nerves, if it was perhaps just the moment was a little overpowering to his guys, and he said, nah, not really.
Oddly enough, I didn't feel the nerves of the team. I felt we were really brave in different moments. That I think if we were nervous, we just would have dumped the ball. We wouldn't have even taken the chance. So I don't know what it was. I felt nervousness. I thought we were more nervous playing SMU in the semifinal than we were today. I felt we looked really confident today, and maybe overconfident in some of those moments where we look to hold the ball and play. But I also don't. The scoreline is what it is. That's what happened. But I also don't think in the balance of play that scoreline reflects the game. It's an unfortunate, unflattering scoreline, And I think it very easily could have been incredibly a very different game.
UCF outshot Pittsburgh 17-11. Shots on goal, UCF led in that one 10-8, but 4 go in for the Panthers, none for the Knights.
I mean, you appreciate Coach Calabrese's optimism that this could have been a different game. And certainly it's interesting. He said maybe the team was overconfident. I mean, I wonder how much that played a role in it, if that played a role at all. I mean, it's a raw emotion, right? I mean, he's talking to you guys, 30 minutes after a game that ends this season. Maybe hasn't had time to fully look at tape and understand what happened. Again, it sucks because you're going to look at this and going to go, "Oh my goodness, look, the team fell apart, and what a horrible result." And it's gonna sort of put a black mark on the rest of the year they had, and that's unfortunate because it really shouldn't. I mean, the team battled to where they got to. Pittsburgh is a good team. It's one of those losses that, while it stings, it's one of those you're continue to hopefully hold your head high. And I think we've talked about the soccer program, Trace. I feel like that team. Maybe more so than almost any team, the arrow is pointing in that right direction, right? Pointing that upward trajectory. And you can't discount that. Although, today, again, kind of the bitter taste in the mouth from the loss.
You mentioned our shots on goal versus theirs. I didn't get a chance to watch the game. Was the Pittsburgh goalie making outrageous saves, or were they just kind of routine, straight to him shots?
Yeah, they didn't get a good foot on the ball. There weren't really any close shots that it felt like UCF could have scored a goal. It was really the difference, though, was the turnovers that led to fairly easy goals for Pittsburgh. And the rest of the play, as Coach mentioned, UCF moved the ball well. It was just those mistakes in their back end there that, you just can't overcome against a quality team like Pittsburgh. Number 1 seed Clemson knocked out in penalty kicks by Marshall. And so we may have seen a possible national champion in Pittsburgh. And I guess that's what you root for now if UCF's going to lose to the national champions. But, you see this with volleyball. You see it with soccer. Boy, the degrees of difference with recruiting, right? You can be a Sweet 16 team, you can be an NCAA tournament team, but how do you get all the way to the end and win? And it's going to come down to recruiting. So a good season. They started off 1-3, nothing to hang their heads about, but you'd like to have seen a better played game in terms of fewer mistakes. Switching to the other football, UCF Athletics yard sale Saturday at the Bounce House begins at 1:00. Did you see some of these prices? I think folks were speculating about what things might cost. A helmet may be $100, and UCF Equipment on Twitter said that they expect helmets to go for $600. So, Mike, is that 2, 3, 4 in your budget?
No, it's zero. I told you I wouldn't spend more than $100 on a helmet myself. One, I have nowhere to put it. Two, I'm just not really into collecting those kind of things, but a lot of people are, so I'm sure they're going to make money. They sold them out last time for $400, and they sold them out before the general crowd could get in. So that was the big thing. Might as well up the price and get as much money as you can for them.
This is a tough one. I mean, I work in the retail sector, tangentially, and I get you want to maximize profits, right? If there's a supply and demand, you take advantage. That seems like a really high price. I think last year there were 400, I think is what it said, and now there's 600. It's quite a markup over a year time span. And again, supply and demand, I guess that's the way of commerce these days. That's just a lot of money. It seems like jerseys, hats, shorts, equipment, apparel, maybe a little bit more in price line. Curious how many helmets A, they have to offer, and B, what the sell-through rate will be. I don't know if we'll get those stats, but I'd be curious to see what those look like.
It's $600 a pop. They'll sell every last one of them if they can. All right. They'll try and move those. The other thing that's coming up, the Charge On Tour. First stop, real South Florida, Fort Lauderdale, May 12th. Mike, you're planning on going?
Yeah, I will be there. I reserved my spot. I'm bringing the whole family, wife, kids. It's going to be a good time. I just got confirmation today that they got my spot because I signed up the day I heard about it last Friday. Never got the confirmation email. I had to send my own email. Finally, somebody got back to me today, so I will be there Wednesday afternoon.
And perhaps roving reporter, if all goes well, perhaps an opportunity to talk with Coach Malzahn. Have you readied your questions? And any of them involve tank tops?
Oh, there's going to be a tank top question.
Yeah.
I don't have all my questions ready, but I'm definitely getting that one in. The last time I went to one of these, I got to speak to Danny White, Josh Heupel. I asked Heupel about the Shackets. I'm not scared to ask a little bit about the tank tops, or maybe I got a couple other surprises for Malzahn and Mojave.
Trace, can I get it? True or false? This is the last time Mike ever talks to Gus Malzahn. True or false?
That's a good one. I like that. I'm going to go with true because we're not sure where the charge on tour may take us. I think that if he asks the question about tank tops, he may not be allowed access anymore to Coach Malzahn. The visor seems to be something to bring up, the Waffle House, but he just does not seem like a tank top kind of guy.
Mike, ask him, be creative then, Mike. Ask him if he'll wear the sweater vest without a shirt underneath, which is really just a tank top overall, right? So maybe just, get that worked out. All
right. That's a thought. But everybody's already asked the Waffle House questions a million times. This is something he's never heard before.
No, he's never heard this one before. That's for sure.
I mean, Mike, you need your pressure cooker moment, right? With all respect to Darren Stoltzfus, you need your pressure cooker moment. I'm not saying bring some sort of an air fryer with you, but I mean, this could be an opportunity to go viral. Although I'm not sure if that's good or bad.
Maybe I'll bring him one of my tank tops, see if it fits.
I think as soon as Mark Daniels sees you heading in the direction of Coach Malzahn, he's going to be like, whoa, hey, keep moving, Coach. Are you going to try for Mark Daniels again? Do you have maybe throw the tank top question out to him and to Terry Mahaj?
I got Mark last time. I don't know. We'll see if he's available. There's a lot of big names. I'm sure last time Sammy was out there. Maybe I get a chance to talk to Sammy again. I'll make my way around the room and see who bites.
Let me try that testimonial out for you. I'm Mark Daniels, and I never listened to the Sons of UCF.
Actually, you know what, Mike? I feel like Timo. I feel like he might be suns out, guns out kind of guy. He looks like he's a guy who enjoys the weight room. He actually might enjoy the tank top. You may have an in there.
Yeah, I told you he may be my huckleberry when it comes to questions like this. He likes these kind of interviews, I think, and I think he's tired of just the basic same question over and over. So I'll hit him with a few of those.
Can you at least get clarity on whether or not he was threatened by the Trace Trucco walk and talks and decided to up the ante with the sip and talk? Can you at least get clarity on that one question for us?
I will see what I can do.
Okay.
Other tour stops, May 19th, Port Canaveral, and they're going a long way for that one on May 27th, all the way to Oviedo. I wish, however, they had gone to Tampa or perhaps Atlanta, maybe expand that footprint. If you're going to have it in Oviedo, might as well just have it at the bounce house or on campus. I don't know why.
Didn't they go to New York last time, Trace? Right? Do I misremember that? Didn't they go to New York on their last? Yeah.
Some years back. Yeah. New York.
Obviously, COVID, I'm sure some of this stuff is playing a factor in staying in the footprint, right? But I do think it's interesting that people are obviously, opining that there could be other stops, that this could make Jacksonville was mentioned a few times, right? Tampa's a good opportunity. Atlanta's an opportunity. So at least there's supply and demand on this juncture as well. Maybe in future years, we'll see more of this, with the self-proclaimed future of college football. I think it would behoove us to get out in some of these areas and meet the alumni, meet the fans, and maybe impress a couple of local reporters to get out there and cover UCF for free.
Yeah, I was up at the one in Jacksonville. That's the first opportunity I had to speak with Coach Scott Frost during that tour stop. So they do move them around. I just think, Oviedo, perhaps that one's a little easy. But State of Florida announcing today all 12 public universities can return to pre-pandemic operations, academics, and sports. So it seems as we get into the dog days of summer that it's looking more and more like you're going to have full stadiums in the fall. One more football note before we talk a little bit about the draft. Jags cut Nate Evans. So what we have Shaquille there, right? Is that where we've got our connection?
That's our connection.
But he inks with the Seahawks. So, we've got UCF Northwest back in business with Nate Evans going to Seattle. So you guys did a pretty good breakdown of the draft. I went on record as saying 4 guys. I think you had 6. Number was 5. Still a pretty good class for UCF. What were your big takeaways? Richie Grant went high, nearly first round, right? 40th overall. A good fit for the Falcons. And Mike, you get Aaron Robinson to the Giants.
Yeah, I'm pumped about Aaron Robinson. I never get one of these guys drafted to my team. So that had me excited. Tate Gowan slipped a little bit more than maybe he thought or some other people thought. Some people had him penciled in higher. I think Richie went pretty much where everybody expected. Jacob Harris was the other one that people were saying anywhere from the 2nd to the 7th round. He went right in the middle there. And then the couple guys that didn't get drafted, Marlon Williams and the 2 running backs. So, did you guys hear that thunder?
I thought your garage door opened accidentally.
No, it's raining pretty hard out here too.
I thought it was the dryer. First off, Trace, we did a pretty good job. Second of all, Trey Nixon, I think, was a fantastic story. 7th round, that video that's now viral, the Patriots' longtime staff member for his final pick got to call Trey Nixon, made the pick. You saw the video of him calling Trey, of Bill Belichick on the phone with Trey. So for forever, I think it's Ernie Adams is the guy's name. He's a legend in New England. He'll be associated with this Trey Nixon pick. I thought that was a really cool opportunity. I think that was a great video. I just love seeing those videos. You saw the Jacob Harris video. You saw that, the Tate Gowan video. You saw Richie Grant's video. Seeing guys get a phone call that literally may change their life. I think there's nothing better than that. And when you have a rooting interest in these guys like we all do, that makes it all the more sweeter. Obviously, the bittersweet moment, Marlon not getting drafted. He signed pretty quickly afterwards, which hopefully means there was some demand. And I know we're all still waiting to see if anything can materialize with Otis and Greg. But overall, you got to say going into the draft, if we told you these were the results at the end of it, I think most Knight fans would be pretty satisfied with this. So a good day overall for the kids from Orlando.
Yeah, to me, watching those videos was the coolest thing. The thing UCF put out the other day, just the reactions, the family. These guys' lives have changed now. They've gone from wherever local high school they were at to now UCF to now the big time in the NFL. It must be an amazing feeling for them.
And it'd be interesting to reflect on Pro Day, right? Jacob Harris had a tremendous showing in Pro Day and no doubt helped him. But do we overrate too much Marlon Williams' performance on Pro Day and perhaps that he slips a little bit? Or was there something that scouts saw in tape that, maybe they just thought he was the product of the system and that, there just wasn't enough there to get him drafted? However, has an opportunity hopefully to stay on with the Texans.
Listen, scouts are not, they're not fortune tellers. Every year, a player comes from out of nowhere, undrafted players, and guys in the 6th, 7th round, and make great NFL careers, become legends, a la Tom Brady. Obviously, that's probably the most famous one you can think about. Marlon strikes me as the kind of guy that is potentially in that realm where he's going to be able to crack a roster, make some plays for a team, and be that undrafted guy. Listen, the combine measures speed, height, jumping ability. Can't measure heart. Can't measure toughness. It can't measure the ability and the will to do something great. I think we all saw that in Marlon, a never give up kind of attitude. If there's a test for that, I think that's the game film. And it's unfortunate that maybe not enough people watch that game film. But I think for guys like that, the combine perhaps hurts them. But ultimately, I think there's immeasurables that will carry them on to great careers. And I think Marlon has those things. All he needs a chance. And hopefully he gets that with Houston or somebody else. But I certainly think that it may be a bit of a mistake for him to be passed on in the draft.
I don't know what film these guys were watching, maybe from a couple years ago. He definitely improved his speed and he's changed his body the last couple of years. This past season, he was the best player on the field for almost every game we watched. So I'm with Adam. I think he's got a real shot to be one of these guys that still makes a career for himself.
Kaboom. What's the weather report, Mike? Let's go to Mike now for the weather.
It's raining cats and dogs.
This week's big question that I asked on Twitter: how many UCF football players will get drafted in 2022's NFL draft? 3% said 1, 19% said 2, 33% said 3, nearly half at 45% said 4 or more, which of course leads to some speculation. Which names? At @blackgold_ed, he says Big Cat and Brandon Johnson. At Unger. Sam says Kalia Davis, Big Cat, and Dylan Gabriel. And at Brian W. Peterson, Kalia Davis, Big Cat, and Dylan Gabriel. By the way, tip of the hat to J.P. Gilbert, who was not very far off in his Jacob Harris prediction, right? So,
8 picks away.
Interesting names, right? And let's talk a little bit more about the draft. A return guest on the Sons of UCF Live. He's Jonathan Adams, sports contributor at Heavy.com. You can find him at John D. Adams. Jonathan, we welcome you back, correct?
Or we don't welcome him back. He's just dropped out of the green room, Trey. So live technical difficulties. Yeah, it doesn't happen all the time. But you know what? Looks like he's back. I see him there. So we're going to go to Jonathan now. Jonathan is back in. There you go, Jonathan.
There, you're back, Jonathan, a return guest on the Sons of UCF Live. We welcome you back.
Thank you. I got too excited. I just couldn't handle all the excitement you guys were, all the truth you guys were spitting out before I arrived.
Well, we were talking first about how the UCF guys fared. 5 picks of Knights in this NFL draft. Not too shabby. And you'd messaged me that you thought Richie Grant would go high, goes 40th overall to the Falcons. What do you think of Atlanta's pick?
I think it's great. It's a great fit for Richie. If you look at that Falcons team, they're rebuilding. They lost a lot of defensive players in free agency, and so he's going to have an opportunity to really start being the core there of that new group with a new GM, new coach there, Arthur Smith, and I think it's a great fit for him. Really, I can't really complain about any of the fits. You know, when you get 5 guys drafted, I know Orlando, I don't know what the situation on Church Street is as far as COVID and everything, but I'm sure there was some social distancing celebration going on from Knights fans around Orlando and honestly around the country.
Jonathan, we knew that Jacob Harris had an off-the-charts level pro day. We knew his name was sort of bandied about out there. He was one of those kind of sleeper dark horse guys. Obviously, a late arrivee to football from the soccer realm. Going 141 to the Rams, projecting, I guess, to play tight end. How do you project that fit for an athlete of Jacob's size and a Sean McVay type offense? What do you project for him, particularly if he has to make a position switch?
Yeah, I was listening to some of the comments from the Rams, and it sounds like he was drafted. They had him rated as the number 1 special teams player on their board. So he's going to come in right away and contribute on special teams, given his speed. And hopefully, he'll have a chance to then be part of the offense. They lost Gerald Everett to the Seahawks. So there's an opening there in the tight end receiver area. They did bring in Deshaun Jackson. So I know, at least on the NFL Network broadcast, he was listed as a receiver. So I think if they see him as a guy, if he is a tight end, someone that's not going to be connected to the line necessarily, but split him out wide and more of a receiving threat. But I think his initial fit is on special teams. And then obviously, as we've seen with other UCF guys in the NFL, if he does well there, then he has the opportunity to get snaps in the offense. But definitely did well. I mean, I don't know if I've seen a riser. He was potentially a guy that might not get drafted, has that pro day, shows out, does some of the pre-draft. He wasn't even, at the Senior Bowl. He was at one of the smaller events and did really well there and worked his way all the way up to what it was the 4th round, right? 141. So, I mean, super impressed with just how he utilized this draft process, the pre-draft process, to his advantage.
I noticed you have a cowboy helmet there behind you. Our guy, Aaron Robinson, goes to my team, the Giants. Are you anything like me? Do you hate it when the guys that you root for go to a team that you hate?
Well, so right now I cover the Seahawks, Cowboys, and Bucks are 3 of the teams that I cover. So I need like a Bucko Bruce helmet to add there. I also need a UCF helmet. My brother-in-law makes these helmets for me, so he sends me. So whatever he sends me, I put them on the wall. So those are the 2 that he's sent so far. But yeah, so my dad's actually from Texas, so it is a little bit weird. But now I'm trying to be professional in the journalism. Depending on who you ask, if you read the comments of any of my articles or on Twitter, they probably would debate you. But I try to be professional. So it is a little weird to be rooting, just having that sort of like muscle memory. But you look at from just an objective standpoint, New York City being a major market. In a role where he's going to probably start day one, potentially in that slot corner role that's become basically a starter route now, right? With how we're seeing 4 or 5 wide receivers, so I think it's a great fit for him, and obviously I'm sure the UCF athletic department is thrilled to have a night in New York City.
Going into pro day, I'm not sure anyone would have said that of the UCF wide receiver core that Jacob Harris would go ahead of everyone else and Marlon Williams would go undrafted. How do you think those 3 guys shake out with their teams?
Yeah, it was with Marlon, it was super disappointing. Even that, it kind of started with the Senior Bowl didn't get an invite, and there was no combine this year, so I'm not sure if he would have got an invite there, but if there was one, obviously that 40 time really hurt his draft stock. So I don't, but I will say of the undrafted situations, he signs with the Texans team. It doesn't have a lot of competition in terms of they obviously had that terrible trade with DeAndre Hopkins to the Cardinals. So they have wide open opportunity there if he can kind of ball out in training camp. And this year will help him that there are preseason games. So that's going to help him a lot. I don't know what the deal was there. I was just so surprised that he didn't have more buzz going into the draft. I thought he could at least, be like a round 6, round 7 guy and but it's like I've had a few opportunities to interview guys on the day before the draft. And I always tell them it's not necessarily where you get drafted. Not that I'm some sort of Yoda. They have plenty of good advice, but you can tell they're a little bit worried about where they go and guys want to get drafted high. But the big thing is that they get drafted to the right team. So you could get drafted lower, but it's to the right fit, and that's going to be better for your long-term career. So, when you're in that 6 to 7 round range, honestly, it's better to go undrafted in a lot of cases. Then you have your pick as an undrafted free agent because they start the recruiting process, these teams do. And so he's in a great fit, and potentially you could argue a better fit than if he would have got drafted to a team in the 6th or 7th round where he's not going to have an opportunity to compete for a roster spot.
Another interesting case for UCF was Tay Gowan. Obviously, only spent a season at UCF, spent 2 years prior to that in the JUCO level. Opted out of 2020 for personal reasons. He was a kid that was in some draft boards projected higher. I mean, I think you saw him as high as maybe 3 and 4, and then you saw him as low as 7. He ends up going 6 to Arizona. How much do you think the lack of tape and or the opt out hurt a guy like Tay Gowan and ultimately other guys who decided to opt out of 2020?
Well, in some cases, you look at the guys high of the draft, Jamar Chase, Parsons, some of those, Micah Parsons for Penn State. It doesn't seem like if you're a top 20 guy or top 30 guy, it seemed like those guys didn't have as much of an impact. But definitely on the day 2, day 3 fringe, I do think it hurt. And you saw guys that even had any opportunity to have any in-person work. So you saw a lot of the Senior Bowl guys this year get pushed up the board because that was really the one in-person interaction that these NFL teams had with the players this year. Even scouting in person was difficult because I think scouts had to just, attend the game, but then they couldn't necessarily meet with the guys until some of the pro days. I believe that's what most of the schools' philosophy was. So it definitely hurt him, but, the Cardinals, it sounds like he's going to have opportunity to make the roster there. They want to develop him in that secondary. If I remember correctly, Patrick Peterson, I believe, is with the Vikings now. So there is some opportunity there for him, even if he was drafted lower than he wanted to stick around and make an impact.
5 Knights drafted this year. It's a new school record. We've been on an upward trend. How about our friends over to the west, the Cows? For the 3rd year in a row, nobody drafted. Can we just take a moment here just to laugh at them? Or can you just expound on it? How pathetic is that program right now?
Well, I can't.
Be journalistically unbiased.
I can comment. I can comment off there to you, but I will say this: what I told. I think we were messaging back and forth on Twitter, and this is obviously a record day for UCF, but I think UCF's only getting started now that you have a real recruiter there in Gus Malzahn. We're going to start to see as he takes some swing at some of these guys that 4 or 5-star guys. And I know there's debate about the star system, and we have seen UCF guys outperform whatever their ratings are, but there is some truth to that. And so if UCF can start to get more consistently these 4 and 5-star guys, I think you're going to start to see more and more. We've obviously had UCF's had success getting guys drafted and getting guys in the NFL, but I think you're going to see even more success with Gus there. And I will pose a question to you. I'm going to not answer your question, but I am going to pose a question to you. UCF, I think, was the record of 5 this year. Most guys drafted. How do you explain last season then? If you look at the talent, I know some of those guys were opt-outs, but what's your answer? I'm sure you guys go round and round this, but to me, I obviously have an answer, but I'm curious what you guys would think about that, because clearly at least the NFL is saying you guys had enough talent. There's no way that a team that talented from an NFL perspective should be getting blown out by BYU by like 40 or whatever it was in the bowl game, in my opinion.
Yeah, the easy answer is one of the guys didn't play all season. The other guy was hurt for 90% of the season. So it was really 3 out of 5. The games we lost in the season were close losses, and the BYU game, nobody played, if you want to take it that route. But the close losses, I mean, there's one guy you can turn your head to and say, what were you doing in some of those games? And that's the head coach.
The former head coach.
Right.
Yeah. Let's pivot to 2022. I think a lot of Knights fans wondering if Dylan Gabriel will be included in that draft class, but perhaps it's Big Cat Bryant that has the possibility of going highest.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know exactly what happened with Big Cat because he was a top 100 prospect the last couple of years and just has kind of bounced around a little bit. So I know he definitely needs this season to resurrect his draft stock and is going to have every opportunity to step in and contribute right away, it seems. So as UCF grows as a program, you're going to start to see these sort of tough decisions. Do you root for Dylan Gabriel to have a great season and potentially have an opportunity to lead to the NFL? Because am I correct? He's a junior this year, this next season. Is that right?
Yes.
So you're in that situation where right now he's not being listed as among the top quarterbacks. He would be probably potentially like a day 3 guy. Dane Brugler, who writes way too much stuff about the draft that anyone else could take in. He does a very popular draft guide every year, and he mentioned Dylan Gabriel as a guy that could help his draft stock, but he also listed about 15 quarterbacks, and Dylan wasn't on that list. Now we've seen that before where players outperform, especially guys that are smaller in stature at quarterback, will outperform and have an opportunity to get drafted. Kyler Murray was headed to the MLB, to play pro baseball, and then has a stellar season at Oklahoma and ends up being the top draft pick. So Dylan's going to have every opportunity to help his draft stock. It's one of those things that UCF fans, are you rooting that he has a great season and potentially does so well that he could be, a top 60 pick, moving his way up there? That's where UCF as a program grows, where you have these more and more talent, which could potentially mean less and less time at UCF, which is a good problem to have, I would say.
How much does having a coach like Gus Malzahn help these guys from a draft stock perspective? Either connections he has, contacts he has. Obviously, he's a quote unquote a name brand head coach. There'll be some eyeballs on UCF probably a little bit more early in the season. If we start winning, they'll continue to stay on UCF. Does having a big name coach like a Gus Malzahn, does that help some of these guys from a draft stock perspective, you think, going into next year?
I think so, because you got to think he's got all those connections from his Auburn days, and Auburn has no shortage of players in the NFL. And so it'll be interesting to see the knock on Auburn there was his development of quarterbacks. If you look kind of like nitpick a little bit, I know there was some question on how he developed Bo Nix and some of the other guys there, but I think he's going to be great for Dylan. And I think he can only help his draft stock, even though I know Heupel was kind of billed as the quarterback whisperer. I know that Bruce Arians is dubbed as a quarterback whisperer, so maybe like quarterback whisperer junior, but I just felt like Dylan was playing in a limited offense last year. When you look at if you look at the offensive play calls, there's deep bombs, which he obviously has a strong arm. That's not the question. But I think NFL teams want to see, can he throw these more nuanced throws and use the whole field, not just bomb threats, or you saw a lot of, utilizing the running back, which I'm sure Gus will do. But hopefully Dylan will have more of an opportunity to utilize the whole length of the field all over, show off some of that mid-range passing that he has the ability to do, I believe. But maybe he hasn't had the opportunity to showcase it in that offense under Heupel.
Last time you were on, we said that you needed to work on some of your draft phrases, come up with something new. One I heard this past week that I never heard before, there was an offensive lineman that had typewriter for feet. Did you come up with anything new for this past draft?
Anything that you saw was good was my doing. One of my favorites, though, I don't know if we said this last time, but bends well at the hips. I mean, don't we all want to bend well at the hips? I mean, who doesn't want that on their draft card? So that's a good one. One of the other ones that's, when a guy's like not athletic, like probably like myself, when they describe someone like me, it'd be like high motor, very good leadership qualities. Which I was never. I peaked in my athletic ability at probably like third grade, right after T-ball. Kind of that was like a pivotal moment. But I never liked getting those awards because it always meant like usually whatever those awards were meant that you weren't very good and they had to give you some awards. So I always kind of laugh when guys. It seems like they're trying to give like a backhanded compliment. But it's when you have with this draft complex that we've created. You have 3 days now of draft coverage. I feel like you kind of run out of analogies, right? Like there's only so many that you can use. And maybe the typewriter thing is just, you kind of had to make up some new ones by day 3.
Back to Dylan, it's likely, right, that his statistics may be down and from the lofty numbers that he put up last season, but he may become a better quarterback. And how important do you think it is that he develop some wheels and that he can make some first downs using his legs?
Yeah, and I would say that that's not going to have a lot of, and I think all of us know that it's not going to have a lot of bearing. I know if we're doing like a fantasy draft, we're going to sort. If you look at the yards and look at some of the yards the last, say, 5-10 years, and whether it's receiver, running back, quarterback, and you just sorted it, and then you look at some of those guys, like a lot of those guys end up not even lasting through their full NFL contract, which is odd because you would think, let's just draft the guy that has the most yards each year, whether it's quarterback, passing yards. Dylan's been very good about protecting the football and not throwing interceptions. But I think he would do well for himself, even if there's a downtick in some of the passing yards, and it's more maybe the tempo. I'm sure that Gus wants to play fast, but I don't know if he's going to play to the level of the amount of plays they were getting off under Heupel. So, but that won't be a knock for Dylan. I think, like I said, I think it's going to be the short to intermediate passing game. In addition to his ability, we know that he can throw the deep pass. Has as strong of an arm as any person in college football heading into next season, but it's showing off that very rate, especially now the popularity of slot receivers in the NFL. That's going to be something that I think NFL scouts are going to be utilizing more so than him breaking. He's going to own a lot of records by the time he leaves Orlando. So.
One of my favorite things about our show is that oftentimes our listeners do the work for me. So here's a question from a good friend of ours, Nelson. Assuming that Dylan Gabriel comes out in the draft next year, is Dylan Gabriel drafted higher than Mackenzie Milton if both are available in the draft?
That's a tough one. I would say yes, but the caveat, no sports writer worth his salt doesn't have a caveat and talk out of both sides of their mouth. So I try to do that over the years. That's why you guys maybe keep inviting me on. But, I don't have access to KZ's medical records, but obviously played really well in the spring game. But there's going to be a long path to where he was at last season to get all the way to being a top prospect. But if anyone can do it, obviously it's him. I know he has a standing invite from the Senior Bowl, which I think that they'll make. That wasn't just like PR. I think that they really did mean that he's going to get invited as long as he was back to full health back when he first had the injury. So he's going to have an opportunity, but I think he's going to have to utilize some of the pre-draft process. You also have to think Dylan's not going to have trouble. He's obviously the starter at UCF, and whereas Mackenzie's in a quarterback battle right now. So he's got to prove that. I know it sounds callous to say because we're all we're rooting for him, but from an NFL perspective, they want to see that he's fully healthy. But he also has to win that starting spot, which I think he has a chance to do. Obviously, he showed off in that spring game, and if that continues, it's going to be hard for them to keep him off the field. But Dylan just has a clearer path to be able to use this season as a much cleaner prospect in terms of the health evaluation, which is a big piece of it. But I know that we're all rooting for Mackenzie to play on Sundays, and I think he's definitely going to get a chance, assuming that he stays healthy and makes that recovery like he already has.
We already mentioned the big cat and obviously Dylan Gabriel. I know you've already probably done a mock draft for 2021. What other Knights are on that list? Who do we could look forward to getting drafted next year?
I was thinking about that. There's got to be, and some of it depends on the running back, but I feel like the running back's going to be, and you guys have talked about this some on your show, I think, but the running back is going to be featured in Gus Malzahn's offense. I'm sure you guys have more of a pulse on who's leading that position battle. And then we also, UCF seems to be churning out wide receivers. We didn't talk about. We should talk at some point. Trey Nixon, I think, is a great fit in with the Patriots, but that's not what you asked me. I just thought of that. But so I definitely think there's going to be some UCF receivers that go. It just depends on it's hard to project because look at who are going to be the guys that are going to get opportunities in Gus's offense. So those would be the two positions that I definitely would look at. I would say Big Cat right now is the favorite to be drafted first, but I wouldn't be surprised if one of those UCF receivers emerges as the guy that ends up hearing his name called first, kind of like what we saw with Richie Grant and Robinson this past weekend.
All right, Jonathan, you have opportunity to write about Nate Evans, who's now inked with the Seahawks. We appreciate you hopping on with the Sons of UCF Live. You can find him at John D. Adams for all of his coverage, and we'll have you back again. You're good fun on this show.
Well, I appreciate it, fellas. Thanks for keeping us out-of-towners in the loop as much as possible. And, yeah, appreciate you guys.
All right. Thanks much. All right. In this space a week ago, we had a very tired Luis Pardillo of Dreamfield talking about a quick change in name, image, and likeness, and just about as quick. It went from 2021 to pushing it a year to back to July 1st. So Florida remains on track. Interestingly enough, Georgia signed its name, image, and likeness bill today, and it calls for schools to keep up to 75% of an athlete's endorsement compensation. It would seem to me that that might be a recruiting advantage for Florida schools over Georgia schools.
If only there could be like one governing body that could help us like figure out how to handle all of college athletics. We gotta figure that out. I hope Lewis got some sleep, because I know it's probably maybe a long couple of days for him. Obviously, Florida reversed their course there. Some will point to many of the high-profile athletes, including a Mackenzie Milton and a lot of the coaches in the state of Florida who use their voice to influence legislators to potentially make a change there. Not quite sure what Georgia's doing. This is not just a comment about this legislation, maybe, and other things as well. But listen, I think it's going to be a free-for-all. States are going to decide what they want to do. The NCAA is going to be powerless to stop it. And I think at some point there has to be some sort of standardization here. I think you have to do the right things by the players, by the kids. This doesn't feel like it in terms of Georgia. And I'm not saying that Florida's got it right either. I don't think any of us really know yet. I think there's a lot of things that are going to change and they're going to evolve with this. But if only there was a way we could get some sort of a governing, I don't know. I'll spitball that idea. Go ahead, Mike.
I mean, it's all about the money, right? That's why this decision got switched back. Somewhere in those back rooms, somebody said, all right, we're going to make some money off it. All right, let's do it. Or they were going to lose money, changing their mind. Somebody was going to get mad. And I don't know. But you're right. Everybody, it has to be even all across college football. Otherwise, you're going to start seeing recruiting go way up and way down in different spots. I don't know how they're going to handle it. Let's face it, people are already been getting paid for years. And we've seen it how many times with different schools. Tennessee was the latest. So at least get it on the books and just do it the right way with everybody with the same rules.
So the NCAA must be confused today by Twitter announcing that you'll have a tip feature where you can reward people for their tweets. Will that now be a recruiting violation if you tip your favorite college football player for something they've posted on Twitter? I mean, so many things are happening. Legislation, state lawmakers, the NCAA, they can't keep up with the changes in technology.
Yeah. I mean, the NCAA hasn't kept up with a lot of things, Trace. I think that's the challenge. Is they have been, 3 steps behind everything for a long time. I think it was last week, if I have my dates right, Mark Emmerich, who is sort of the much maligned president of the NCAA, somehow got an extension or got re-elected, and it was like a one-line news dump on the bottom of a press release that had nothing to do with that. So the NCAA has been 3 steps behind for probably the last 10 to 12 years on all these things. I can't imagine that with all the things that will happen with social media, with all the things that happen with technology, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency. There's no way the NCAA can keep up. They're still tracking McDonald's bags. I can't imagine they're going to have any fighting chance to get some of these things.
Bitcoin, tipping a guy on his Twitter with Bitcoin. The NCAA has no idea how to handle that.
I mean, you drop a couple of Dogecoins on somebody, Trace. I mean, you could get some recruits these days.
Where was this tipping feature when I was running my March Madness bracket? I could have made some coin myself. I'd be sitting on a couple of Bitcoins right now.
Well, I sent the link to Adam. You'll have to set up the Sons of UCF Twitter with this tip feature, and we could do a running tally on the show. We're now up to 30 cents. Thank you, Night Nation, for contributing. It could do all sorts of stunts. Do you want to see Mike wear sunglasses again? Tip us.
Let's not turn us into OnlyFans. We don't need an OnlyFans account, Trace. Let's not give Mike any ideas.
Mike will wear his tank top on next week's show
Exactly.
if we get up to $33.09.
Or Mike won't wear his tank top, which is really more where I'm concerned.
You guys are thinking about some big money raises there. Might be some high bids to see the guys.
Oh boy, yeah. You and Coach Malzahn showing off next week in Fort Lauderdale. That'll be something. Let's
Contest?
What do you think we could get though if Mike can get a picture with him and Gus Malzahn flexing in a tank top? That's got to be worth we've got to be able to market that immensely, right? If we get that, I mean, the tip jar's got to open up.
That goes straight to the top of the website, I think, right?
Or it'll be perfect bail money for you.
Bail money. We don't get opportunity to talk about basketball much during this time of the year, but how about Taco Fall last night against the Magic? He for the Boston Celtics. Just 5 minutes, 2 points, 3 rebounds, 4 blocks. Don't you wish maybe the Magic think maybe they should have taken Taco Fall, if nothing else, than to be a good publicity driver for this basement franchise?
Yeah, not the best season for the Magic. I mean, they have a couple of young pieces, Cole Anthony, RJ Hampton. They just got in the trade for Aaron Gordon. You would think a Taco would help out. It's unfortunate that Boston doesn't find more of a role for him. I understand there may be some limitations offensively at times. I understand that obviously while he's tall, he doesn't necessarily have maybe as much weight to hang with some of those guys in the post. He can't get to the perimeter. I get all that stuff, but you kind of wish Boston would have more of an opportunity to get him in the game. It kind of hurt. It's really tough. So I can speak from experience. I was on my high school basketball team. I was not the best player. I was the 13th guy on the 12-person team. And so when I got in the game, and Mike can remember this, I got in the game, everybody cheered, and I don't care where I caught the ball. They wanted me to shoot it because I think I had 10 points for my entire career. I hate to see Taco in that realm where he's in the game and they're all jumping up and down and laughing and want to see him play because he's a good player. He's an NBA caliber player. I wish he could find a situation that could give him more of that exposure. If that's the Magic, that'd be perfect. But there's got to be a team out there that he can at least get some more quality minutes versus the Adam garbage time minutes that I got in high school.
Yeah, they're treating him almost like a circus act where he's actually contributing. Every time he gets in, where he had 4 blocks in how many minutes yesterday? 4 minutes? 5 minutes, 4 blocks? I mean, average that out over 48 minutes. He's going to have 40 blocks a game.
I like your math, by the way. 4 goals is 72 points. 4 blocks in 5 minutes is 200 blocks a game.
The thing, Mike's actually really good at math too, by the way. I've seen his math scores. He's really good at math.
He's scoring. I bet you that's not that far off. Average that out. 4 blocks over 48 minutes. Go ahead. But he scores every time he gets in there. He's getting better and better. Is it the Celtics that are just that good? I don't follow them that closely. Who's the starting centers for the Celtics?
Here's the Mike question of the week that Adam
knows.
I got you. So Tristan Thompson of the Kardashian fame, he's now over there. They have Robert Williams, who was a guy, I think, Texas A&M. They let go of Enes Kanter. They just traded Daniel Tice. You would think they'd have an opportunity for Taco, but it's small ball these days in the NBA, Mike. That's the problem is he's matching up with a guy that like an Anthony Davis who's going to take him 24 feet to the perimeter. Not that he can't extend and put his arms up, but if Anthony Davis puts the ball on the floor, does he get around Taco easily enough? It's more of, I think, of a matchup situation than anything. But you would think there's one team out there, or there's situational moments where Taco can play. Again, we just saw him play at UCF, and maybe I'm just on my soapbox in this one. It just hurts to see him do an up and under move and watch Jason Tatum and the whole bench lose their mind like it's the first time he's been on a basketball court. He's an NBA caliber player.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he's got a few years left in the NBA. If the NBA isn't for big guys anymore, he's going to have a great career. If he has to go overseas, he can dominate at some point. He's getting better and better as the years go on.
Aubrey Dawkins back, signs with Sideline Cancer, a team in the basketball tournament that'll be coming up this summer. And John Rothstein reports Florida State expected to play UCF and Florida expected to play the Cows in the 2021 Orange Bowl Classic. Mike, if you do not get removed from the Charge on Tour event by UCF Sports Information and you can keep your credentials alive, perhaps you can pose a difficult question to Johnny Dawkins about why he's on the hot seat when the Knights come to South Florida.
Well, first of all, you're welcome, everyone, because this was my idea. You go back to the last Charge on Tour in Fort Lauderdale. I told Danny White to get us back in this Orange Bowl Classic that we were in I believe in 2010 was the last time. He liked the idea. He got us in there last year. Unfortunately, got canceled for COVID. Glad to see us. We're back, and I will be at that game. As for asking questions afterwards, I don't think that's going to be my thing because, I'm going to have a few beers during the game. I will not. I will be off-duty fan UCF Mike.
Fan UCF Mike.
Yeah, I'm looking for the picture now. Mike and I went to, I think, that last game in 2010. I think we were both there. Yeah. We got club seats. This is not going to work. I think it's your cousin with us, Mike.
Yeah, he's a Gator because the Gators also played that.
I have no idea if you guys can see that. That's me and Mike's cousin, circa 2010 at the Orange Bowl Classic. That's a good time. I think. I don't know why I don't look like I have an eye open there. We used to get like Lexus club level seats, booze, and food. It's a really good event for if you like college basketball. 2 games for the price of 1. Obviously, Florida teams. So it's definitely a good event. It's good to see UCF get back in there. Florida State probably looking for revenge, by the way, because obviously they were on the wrong side last year. And I'm also disappointed or somewhat proud that I have all that Boston Celtics roster knowledge. I'm not sure what to do with all that.
The cool thing about that tournament, it's not really a tournament. It's just 2 games in one day. The Gators usually get the late game. So the UCF Florida State, I'm thinking, will be the first game. If we win that, then you just sit back and relax and you eat and you drink and you hang out and you make wisecracks during the Gator game. It's a fun time.
Well, guys, soccer's dream of a national title ended today with the loss to Pittsburgh, but we're really a tennis school, in fairness. We're really a tennis school. Number 8 women's tennis earned the number 9 national seed in the NCAA tournament. Today, Brian Konitko, AAC Coach of the Year, 3rd straight. And I'll say the name, Valeria Zaleva, the AAC Player of the Year. UCF will host the first and second round in the tournament over at the USTA National Campus in Orlando. Friday, hosting Charleston Southern at noon. The winner faces the winner of FIU versus Miami. And then that comes up on Saturday. So UCF women's tennis can go far in the NCAA tournament, as can the men. Number 10, they also earned the number 9 national seed. John Roddick announced today, AAC Coach of the Year. Gabriel DeCamps, AAC Player of the Year. They will as well host those first and second round games in Orlando. They open Saturday versus Monmouth. That's who Pittsburgh beat in soccer. So Monmouth, who knew? Monmouth, the power in tennis and in soccer. And the winner faces Mississippi State, Miami. So it's possible the men and women could advance to play Miami in their respective next round matchups if they get through and all things equal out. But these are 2 programs could contend for a national championship. I mean, they're top 10 ranked.
Trace, I know you're going to come to me for your tennis coverage, and I can understand why you do that. But off script here, Mike has been preparing a little game for you all day long. And that game is tennis or Kentucky Derby. He's going to read you the names of an individual. You tell us if this is a UCF tennis player or a Kentucky Derby jockey, and that'll be our tennis coverage for this evening's show. Mike, take it away, my friend.
Are you ready for this one, Trace? I know you didn't see it coming.
I'm not ready at all.
I know you follow the tennis team. How about, tell me, is this a UCF men's tennis player or a Kentucky Derby jockey? Juan Pablo Grassi Marzucci.
UCF tennis player.
Boom, 1 for 1. All right.
Nice. Nice.
How about Luis Saez?
I do not recognize that name. Kentucky Derby.
2 for 2. He's nailing them.
I told you he'd be good at this. How
about John Velasquez?
John Velasquez. Tennis.
No, he actually won the Kentucky Derby on top of Medina Spirit. He was the winning jockey.
I did not see the Kentucky Derby, so I did not know that.
All right. How
Otherwise
about
occupied.
Kento Yamada?
Ooh. Kento Yamada. I do not know this, but I'm going to go back to UCF.
Yeah, correct. He is a junior from Japan. So that is the we have players from Argentina, Ukraine, India, Romania, Russia, and Japan, which I did not know. So our team is worldwide.
Yeah, a lot of our sports recruit worldwide. I think there are 15 different languages on the UCF men's soccer team. So they're all recruiting these men's, women's tennis, soccer, recruiting globally. So I did 3 out of 4.
You did pretty well. Yeah, you got just as many as I did on my James Madison quiz last week.
And had I watched the Kentucky Derby, I would have known that.
My favorite thinking about this, Trace, is that Mike spent all afternoon like Googling the UCF men's tennis roster and trying to figure out who some of these guys were and what all this stuff meant to. That's probably the best thing about this entire exercise.
Well, it only took me about 30 seconds to type in UCF tennis roster. I got the list. It took me about an hour to figure out how to pronounce some of the names.
You know, if you look, there's a pronunciation key on the roster page. It's the little ear symbol, and the player is usually the one that says their own name. So you should, that's a little bit of fun if you're looking to kill a little bit of time. All right, softball. They were swept at Ole Miss. We will just forget about all of that. They've got the Cows this weekend. I exchanged messages with our favorite guy, Eric Lopez. He says if the Cows beat UCF 3 out of 4, they will win the AAC, these games in Orlando. If not, a split or UCF takes 3 or all 4, Wichita State will claim the title. AAC tournament begins in Tulsa in a week. So we've got to ruin the Cows' chances right there, don't we? We got to deny them an AAC title.
The other team must go down, Trace, and they must go down hard. What does this mean, though? Does Elo give you any insight, or do you have any insight? What does this mean for sort of the postseason chances for the softball group? Is it simply win the tournament and you're in? Is that really the only path to the Women's College World Series?
You know, that's not something we spoke of. We were just talking about where they are in the standings in the AAC tournament. Tournament begins next week, so we were talking about maybe he'd hop on with us. We're not sure when UCF's game would be. It's perhaps in the afternoon, so he might join us on Sons of UCF Live to talk about that game and the rest of the tournament. But I didn't get into that with him. When I have heard him speak on this, though, UCF was still in the mix for the NCAA tournament. So, you know, those dreams aren't dashed yet.
I mean, we've seen this team do some incredible things. We've seen some late game heroics. We've seen them take out top teams in the country. You know, this happens in seasons, right? You kind of have that lull where things sort of die down a little bit. We know they're capable of turning it up a notch. This weekend could be the first weekend to start that leading into the tournament. You've seen that team flip that switch. What better time than against the Cows? Let's flip the switch and I think I demanded a sweep of the men's team. I'll demand a sweep again here. Softball must sweep the Cows. Non-negotiable.
Non-negotiable.
You heard me, Trace. Non-negotiable.
Well, speaking of baseball, they beat Memphis 3 out of 4. This weekend, they've got the doubleheader Friday, Saturday, Sunday with Wichita State. What is the Sons of UCF prediction? What is acceptable? You wanted the sweep of Memphis. That is, as Mike said on the pod Monday, that's hard to do in a 4-game series over 3 days. I think 3 out of 4 win series.
I agree. Win the series. Wichita's 22-17, 10-9 in the AC and the AAC. You know, they're not as maybe downtrodden as the Memphis squad was we faced last weekend. Give me a series win here. The back to 500, 22-22 for the men's baseball, obviously, or just the baseball team. And so this is the opportunity. Let's get 3 or 4 here, and let's see what happens next.
That's right. I mean, you can't lose the series. That is for sure, or else I'm going to declare the season over again, which I've done a couple times in my brain. I haven't said it out loud yet, but we got to win at least 3 out of 4. Sweep would be nice. This team is better than the Memphis team. Just no ugly games. How's that? The game we had to open the series against Memphis last week, we get run ruled at home. That you can't stand for that.
He's firing coaches again. You can't get run rolled at home. Freshman Alex Freeland, the AAC Player of the Weekend, as you spoke of on Monday. The tough news: pitcher Colton Gordon, your very reliable first-game starter, out for the season, torn UCL. And going to need that Tommy John surgery, which is expected to happen this week. So wish him the best in his recovery. And that's going to be a long one in his recovery. I know you debuted it last week on the Sons of UCF Live, the new website where you can find all of the Sons content, including your interview with EJ Dunstan on Sons number 131.
EJ Dunstan was a fantastic conversation. Come for the part about who did not block for him on his famous punt return against South Carolina. Stay to hear him blasphemously talk about how many tacos he thinks he could eat, because I don't think anyone's buying that. But EJ was known as the menace in the trenches. Positive attitude. He's a guy that is now a local high school coach in Orlando. He's an Orlando kid. And so he's got some great insight on UCF back when he went there and where UCF's at now as well. So make sure you check that out wherever you get your quality podcast or 2nightsmedia.com.
He was part of that class, the freshman class that came in and won right away in 2010, won the Liberty Bowl, and then went out as a winner also in the Fiesta Bowl. Very nice guy, very good interview we did with him, and a couple nice stories in there too.
My big takeaway from that interview is how he talked about is he's now in coaching, that you can coach through fear or you can coach through love. And clearly he reflects on his time under George O'Leary as a coach, and Coach O'Leary who coached using fear as a tactic. And that's not something that he does. And it was nice to hear how he talked about his players and coaching them up. So, a great deal of respect that you hear from the former players for Coach O'Leary, but didn't always enjoy playing for him, certainly.
Yeah, I think there were some undercurrents there of some opportunities. I think for him to express perhaps their coaching styles are a tad different, and I think we've heard that from players in the past that O'Leary coached the guys hard. Was he the guy that you were going to put your arm around at the end of practice? Probably not. But I think that the mark of O'Leary, while he certainly had some things, the teams respect him. And listen, a lot of times if you're in a certain industry, a certain business, as you grow in that career, you take good and bad from previous bosses, previous leaders. You kind of mix and match your own style. I think it says a lot about EJ that he kind of recognizes what his strengths are as a coach. I'm sure there are some tactical things or maybe some things he doesn't even realize he took from O'Leary that he uses today, just are ingrained in him. But I think it certainly is the mark of a mature person, a self-aware person, to understand what their strengths are and use those for their own styles and whatever their career might be.
Hey, Coach O'Leary, we know he's an old school guy. He was born in 1946. He grew up in the 50s and the 60s. I'm sure that's how he was taught football. So that's how he ended up coaching. And it's not for everybody's style today, but that's what worked for him, and that's what he knew how to do. And Dunstan learned from him. And you can either copy what you were coached or go the complete opposite way, and he's doing that direction. So both ways can be successful.
What a random stat that Mike knows George O'Leary's birth year. What a random upset that's what he spouts out. Who knew?
August 17th, 1946. Right?
Wow.
Look it up.
Wow.
Jeez.
When you consider that he knows that, but there's a whole host of other questions. All right. Before we close this one out, weather on the threes, Mike, what's the latest from South Florida?
I still hear some scattered thunderstorms out there, but I don't know. I'm going to bed, so it doesn't really make a difference.
I hope that charge on tour does not last past 9, or the carriage will become a pumpkin or what have you. Mike, try and bring us back some video of these grilling interviews that you do that we might be able to run on next week's Sons of UCF Live. Good luck to men's and women's tennis. Thanks for joining us for this one. For Adam and Mike, I'm Trey Strelko. Go Knights!